It took visiting Vietnam to figure out that I have been doing this all wrong.
Breaking developments in the coronavirus pandemic.
I first caught the travel bug back in 2021. COVID was very much still around, but by that time, borders to many countries had reopened, and as you might imagine, I was antsy to get away, to literally anywhere. I took my first 2 big international trips in 2021, both separate trips to Europe, and once I started, I couldn't get enough. I was hooked. Little did I know that it would take me a full 5 years before I would finally find what it was that I was actually looking for through all of this travel, and that I would find it in Hanoi, the capital city of Vietnam.
As the father of a young girl, is it all gonna be okay?
You've heard of Anthony Bourdain. Like all of the world's best artists, while he was certainly famous in life, he's only become even more famous in death. His stamp of approval continues to drive international restaurant success even all these years later. I became a Bourdain fan shortly after I caught the travel bug, and I have looked up to him ever since. Bourdain loved Vietnam. It was one of his favorite countries, and he visited many, many times. As such, I knew that I had to go and see it for myself, to enjoy the food and activities like he did, to see the sights, to absorb the chaotic energy. And finally, that day came. And not only was I going to go to Vietnam, but I was going to spend an entire month there with my home base in the northern city of Hanoi. But despite the fact that I live in a new country every single month and sort of have a set way of doing things by now, in Vietnam, my expectations were thrown off pretty much as soon as I arrived. I got off the plane and hopped into the car that would take me from the airport to my Airbnb. But when I finally arrived and was dropped off at the address, I found myself standing not at a doorway, but at the entrance to an alleyway? This doesn't look right. I stood there anxiously trying to contact my Airbnb host, sure that I was lost or that I had the wrong address. But not long after, as if from a movie, out from behind a corner in the back of the alleyway, I saw a smiling face approaching. That was the smiling face of my Airbnb host, Feng. And I didn't know it then, but Feng, along with his wife Hai, would change the way that I travel forever. Feng guided me inside, and I quickly learned that this is not your usual Airbnb. We dropped the luggage into the room, and he gave me the lay of the land. You know, how to use the AC, how to access the filtered water, just normal stuff like that. But the part that totally surprised me was receiving an invitation that I had never gotten before. Feng said that I was invited to have dinner with him and his wife every single Saturday night throughout my stay in Hanoi. I didn't want to be rude, so of course I said yes. But I had never done this kind of thing before. Will I get the local customs right? Will I embarrass myself? I mean, I had some reservations. Nonetheless, my arrival was on a Thursday morning, and so I had just a couple of days to unpack and to figure out the local customs before joining for the big dinner. I didn't have much time to prepare, and so on Friday, I dove into Hanoi headfirst. And I have to say, the city took me totally by surprise. For my first full day in Vietnam, I booked a walking tour of Hanoi. Throughout the walking tour, I had the chance to really learn so much about Hanoi in a short period of time. I walked all along the iconic train street, which I fell in love with immediately. It's a street jam-packed with souvenir stalls and bars and cafes, all lit up with pretty lights and lanterns, and which simultaneously serves as an active railway line. All of us tourists sort of just sit there at these cafes and bars just waiting for the trains to pass, which happens a few times per day. It was here where I first learned of Vietnam's intense love for coffee. In Vietnam, you can drink all kinds of incredible coffee all day long, from egg coffee to coconut coffee, and so much more. In fact, I'm going to make an entire video just about the best local food and drink options in Hanoi, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss that. The walking tour also took us to see some shops around the iconic Hoi An Kiem lake, and what I learned from that is just how incredibly artistic Vietnam is. I mean, sure, every country in the world has arts and crafts, but in Vietnam, I swear half of the stores in the major cities are just selling art. I mean it, there are entire chains dedicated to art and design, including these tired city shops where you can just buy really cool art prints, or this other brand called Kolkat, which features both art and this caked up ditto.
Oh, yeah.
And that's just scratching the surface. And it wasn't too far from there that I learned about Vietnam's immense religious history and diversity, including a stop at the iconic St. Joseph's Cathedral. Unfortunately, I was never able to go inside, but the gray and white texture of the building is one of the most unique and interesting of any cathedrals that I have ever seen in the world. And lastly, to end the night, we of course had to stop at HIEN. And HIEN taught me about Vietnam's intense love for beer. In fact, HIEN has been nicknamed Beer Street, and it is a whole street of bars where you can just hang out and buy cheap drinks all night long. I stayed here for a couple of hours just walking back and forth and enjoying the energy. It truly is unmatched, and the party here goes well into the night. This, as you can tell, was quite the day. I was already falling in love with Vietnam, and I had only just arrived. But with Friday over, I could put it off no longer. It was time to see if I had learned enough about the culture. It was time for dinner with my host family. Saturday night, 7 p.m. I took a shower and put on a half-decent shirt, and I nervously headed down the 6 flights of stairs to join Fung and Hai for dinner. Hai had made an incredible spread, all local Vietnamese dishes served alongside some Hanoi brand beer. Needless to say, the food was incredible. I constantly get comments on my food videos here on YouTube saying something like, "Oh, if you think that restaurant food is good, imagine how good the food is when it's made for you in the home of a local granny." Well, in Hanoi, for the first time, I got to experience exactly that. And it truly is as mind-blowing as you might imagine. But here's the thing. Despite the food being out of this world, and some of the best that I've ever eaten, it wasn't the food that really affected me. Over the course of 4 weekends, I got to know Fung and Hai, not just as hosts, but as people. I learned about my hosts' favorite memories, what instruments they play, and their favorite parts of the city. And most importantly, I learned what it was like for the two of them to live through the Vietnam War. The things that they shared with me were incredible, and the fact that they could live through such a war in their own lifetime and still choose to offer a seat at the table to an American, no less, was so beautiful and so inspiring. By the time I was finally set to leave Hanoi 28 days later, I had become such good friends with Fung and Hai that they literally canceled their plans on my last morning in town so that they could be there to see me off and wish me goodbye. Fung and Hai reworked their entire schedule for me. I still get emotional just thinking about it. If you watch Anthony Bourdain enough, you quickly tend to notice a pattern in his words and throughout his television episodes. The food is always the entryway, but the goal is cultural immersion. It's 2 or more human beings from opposite sides of the globe connecting. And what he knew better than anyone is that there is no better way to open a meaningful dialogue than by sharing a meal. Just like Anthony Bourdain, I too now love Vietnam. I love everything about it. The fast pace, the art, the coffee, the beer, the food. But I think the thing I will always love most is that it gave me the chance to truly experience the point of all of this. To quote Anthony Bourdain himself, food may not be the answer to world peace, but it's certainly a start.